Welcome to the Hardline Curling Show. I am your host, Taylor Shire. We are going to be your home for everything curling. Interviews with players and executives and insiders and the latest from events all over the pebbled ice. Today in our debut episode, we'll speak with the CEOs of Curling Canada and USA Curling, tell you who's leaving Penticton, BC with a fatter wallet, and check in on the Pan-Continental Curling Championships in Lacombe, Alberta. This past weekend saw 24 men's teams battle it out in British Columbia at the Nufloors Penticton Curling Classic with a $100,000 purse up for grabs. The round robin began with 4 pools of 6, with Scott Howard's team from Ontario and Matt Dunstone's rink out of Manitoba coming through pool play as the only unbeaten squads, while Team Reed Carruthers from Manitoba and the Brad Jacobs foursome from Alberta finished first in the other 2 pools with 4-1 records. 3 of those 4 pool winners would go on to win their quarterfinal matchups, with Team Carruthers the lone exception as they were taken out by the young rink from Minnesota, skipped by 23-year-old Daniel Casper. The Americans' run came to an end in the semis, however, with Team Howard earning the 7-3 victory, while Team Jacobs won a battle of the heavyweights against Team Dunstone 6-4 in the other semifinal. Scott Howard was looking to go back-to-back after winning the event last year on a team skip by his father, Glenn, and he had a shot with the last rock in the 8th and trailing by 1, but his final run-back attempt crashed on one of his own stones, giving Jacobs and company a 6-4 victory. So Brad Jacobs, Mark Kennedy, Brett Glant, and Ben Hebert claimed the 2024 Nufloors Penticton Curling Classic title and a cool 20 grand in the process. The world number 5 ranked team also picked up 45 CTRS points. Team Howard, meanwhile, takes home $15,000 and 33 ranking points as the runner-up. We are heading to a break now. When we come back, we'll talk to the CEO of Curling Canada, Nolan Thiessen, and take a look at the Pan-Continental Curling Championship going on in Lacombe, Alberta.
Gripper first.
Don't forget the brooms.
Yep, you got it. Yellow.
Come on. Okay, well, what do you got? You got 1, you got 2, go!
Just one more throw, please.
You make moments like these possible.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Handcrafted in Canada, Hardline's ice pad has revolutionized curling for over a decade. Engineered with top-tier precision and durability, it is backed by an unmatched 10-year warranty. Designed for curlers at all levels to sweep effortlessly with maximum efficiency, it is trusted by the world's best curlers, including Olympic and world champions. It is quite simply the best broom in the game. Hardline. Join the revolution.
Our next guest is no stranger to championship curling. Nolan Thiessen is a 3-time Brier champion, winning twice with Team Alberta and once as a member of Team Canada. After retiring from competition in 2016, he joined Curling Canada as an athlete liaison before eventually taking on the role of Executive Director of Marketing and Fan Experience. He was named the CEO of Curling Canada in January. Nolan, thank you for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
Are you used to that title yet, to the CEO of Curling Canada, and how's it been so far?
Yeah, it's starting to sink in, maybe 10 months in now. No, it's obviously a dream job for me, right? So it was exciting when I got the call from the board. But you know what? It's just lots of busy days and lots of passion for kind of what we got going on. So just really excited when I got the opportunity and excited to kind of lead our organization.
You've obviously been around the game a long time and been involved with Curling Canada a long time, but what's your approach to this job and this role, and what do you think makes a good CEO in this role?
Well, you know, for me, it's it's funny because you got to kind of get out of the weeds and you got to be really strategic and think forward, right? We've got an amazing staff whose job it is to kind of work every single day on kind of the nuts and bolts. So that's not my job anymore. My job is to, really try to lead the organization and keep moving us forward. From a good CEO perspective, I think it's just building trust in the whole sports system, the whole curling system, right? It's talking to people. It's really going out there and understanding what the problems are, discussing what our problems are and what we've got going on and where our strategic objectives are. So like for me, it's just communication and trust and helping build that community.
So now that you've taken sort of a wide angle view at it, how would you describe the state of Canadian curling in 2024 and maybe touch on some of those objectives that you do want to improve, as time goes on?
Yeah, it's funny. We're actually working on kind of updating and revamping our strat plan right now. Just as a group, we got a new senior management team, so we're working on it. But I think for me, it's it's just focusing the conversation and making sure that we're talking about the right things and we're looking at the data. I think for me, also the sport. I've got to be our biggest cheerleader at times, right? And I got to be out there, and it's easy to focus on some of the negatives sometimes, and it's harder sometimes to sit there and say, celebrate your successes. There's a ton of good things happening in the sport, right? Like, we won a gold and a silver at the men's and women's world championship last year. We've got new clubs being built in some areas, right? There's some, but there's also places where there's clubs that need to, merge, and some that have to close the doors. So it's just making sure that everybody understands that our sport isn't dying. Our sport just needs to look forward. It needs to look at the things that we do really well and focus on those things and focus on what makes us special, which is the community that we've built for this game, and find ways to reach out to those new people and say, hey, there's, how do you want to experience this game? And not just walk out there and tell people this is how you need to experience the game. Going out there and saying, hey, how do you want to experience it? And let's provide that experience for you.
Right. There's obviously lots of work being done at the grassroots level, and I imagine you guys will continue to do that. But when you talk about the sort of competitive and the elite curling, what has you most excited about this upcoming season?
It's the final year for Olympic and Paralympic qualifications, so it's a huge year for us. I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about internally from a Curling Canada perspective is the viewpoint of our athletes and our whole high performance team and our youth development and our podium pathway group. They're all kind of realizing that, a high performance program is based around all the hard work that you put in. It's not based around, whether or not there's, residency at the Briar or the Scotties. Those are important topics. But our high performance program isn't based around residency. Our high performance program is based around all the hard work that we put in and all the hours that everybody's putting in to try to get better. You reference grassroots. I joke with Dave all the time from a high performance perspective. I say, you actually have the easiest job in Curling Canada because you just have to make more shots. That's all you have to do. You have a very easily defined part of our organization. You just have to get more athletes to make more shots. That's it. Period. End of sentence.
That's good. So speaking of the curling trials coming up in 2025, how are the preparations going for that? And take me through the road that an athlete or a team has to go through in order to just get to Halifax.
Yeah, from a Curling Canada perspective, we went on sale with tickets about a month ago now. And, it's been a great lift for us. Everybody's been really excited about it. It'll be, 10 and a half years since Curling Canada had held a major event in Halifax. So I think there was some pent up demand, and it's a beautiful city in this country. So I think a lot of people are going to travel in. From an athlete perspective, it's 3 years of hard work that leads up to it, right? You form new teams at the start of a quadrennial, and the first year you're kind of figuring things out, and you're putting yourself in a position to be able to play in the best events the next year, and then you're chasing points, but you're also trying to improve every day from a technical standpoint, making sure your team's working together and they're communicating properly, and you're getting into those semis and those finals, those high pressure moments to see how your team reacts when it really matters, when there's tough times. And then it all leads to the trials, right? And you got to walk in that week and you got to perform. I've been lucky enough to go to Briars and perform. My first trials experience, because it felt like the athletes, the fans, everybody was just so much more nervous. I think the Briar and the Scotties has this jovial Canadiana feel, whereas the trials has a all or nothing feel to it. I've also walked into a trials and thought we were the number one team with a chance to win it. And we started the week 0-5, and I still bugs me. So, I mean, it's just, there's so much to it. There's so much mental prep. There's so much physical prep. And, it's just the pinnacle of our championship events, every quadrennial.
Yeah. And then curling fans across Canada can have their favorite teams or the teams that they follow. But then when the Olympics comes around, everyone is following Team Canada, right? The same as the World Championships, but the Olympics, I feel, is just on another level. So when you think ahead to 26, obviously looking back at 22, there was sort of a mixed result, the women's and mixed doubles teams off the podium, but then Gushu and company claiming bronze. Obviously, that's a big accomplishment in itself, but how important is it to get on the podium? All three obviously would be great, but just to sort of put together a good performance for all three.
I mean, we hold ourselves to high standards, right? And we want to be on the podium every time we go to a championship as Canadian athletes. I know our funders that own the podium and Sport Canada and stuff, they look at those championship results. They really look at the work that you're putting in as well, but that work has to pay off at some point. And the whole point of on the podium is to stand up there and get medals. I think as a sport as well, and we've been so lucky in Canada to win so many medals and to win so many gold medals that it seems like a gold or bust. I think from our perspective, it's a podium or bust type of feeling. I think we have to celebrate all of our medals, and all of our athletes know that, and they all want that, and all of our high performance coaches and their whole support staff, everybody has that end goal in mind, but it's the process to get there, right? It's, you don't win the medal. Like, sure, you win the medal in the final game of the Olympics, but you actually win the medal with all the work you put in before that, because you're never going to get to that game if you don't put in the hard work. So I think that's the stuff that we're focusing on right now. And I think the results will look after themselves because of the hard work that we're putting in.
With your experience in fan engagement, how do you grow that area? And is being involved in the game, playing the game, learning the game, is it all related to then becoming a fan, or how do you sort of target that, attracting new fans and young fans?
When you look at the biggest events, it's funny. I said to some people last week when I was going through some stuff, I said, we're not really selling curling, so to speak. Like, obviously we are from when we're selling our major events, we're talking about curling, but we're selling athletes, we're selling games that matter, and we're selling rivalries. That's how you sell sports for major events. That's people love Gushu versus Jacobs. They also love Ontario versus Alberta, no matter who it is, or Saskatchewan versus Manitoba. Doesn't matter if it's football or if it's curling. That's always a great game, right? So I think from our perspective, it's just focusing a little bit different on our fan experience and our marketing to sell how that these are high profile, huge sporting events that really matter, right? I think that's what we're always trying to sell is I call it soul crushing tension because, you know, our game has a methodical pace to it, but it just builds and builds and builds and builds to the final shot of the game. And there's something special about it when you're in the building or watching on TV. So those are the things we got to concentrate on, right? Not worry so much about, you know, the no tick rule or the 5 rock rule. I think those are things that can engage some hardcore curling fans, which are really good. But if we want the average fan, we got to tell those stories. We got to give people a reason to care. We got to give them a reason to really get into the teams or the athletes or whatever.
Right. Speaking of the format, there has been changes over recent years. Do you expect more changes? Are you guys implementing more? This is obviously targeted towards the more hardcore fan, but it's sort of the setup of these major events and even sort of the nuances with the game itself. Are there going to be any changes, or do you foresee any changes in the coming years?
Well, you know, we definitely made some changes in 2023 and 2024 leading into those events. I think the one thing that we've kind of said was we were locking that in for 3 years. And so through 2026, the format is going to remain unchanged. I think after this year's championship, we'll look at sort of the first 2 years and how it went and sort of say, hey, is there, you know, did we get it right? Is there anything that we need to tweak? So for us, it's continuous improvement, but it's also not changing every single year. I think we needed to during the pandemic because things were just moving so fast and we had to do 1,000,001 things. Whereas I think from a future looking standpoint, we wanted to set things in stone. We wanted to say we're going to do this for 3 years at least, and then we'll review it. And we'll, if we're going to make changes, we'll make changes then. So, you know, there's no changes will happen until the end of the quadrennial. And then that's when we can look ahead and try to plan for the next 4 years.
All right, we'll get you on then to talk about the upcoming changes
absolutely.
in the future. But Nolan, I do appreciate the time and coming on the debut episode of the Hardline Curling Show. Thanks, of course, for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The biggest event on the calendar this week is in Lacombe, Alberta. The 2024 Pan-Continental Curling Championships features 8 men's and 8 women's teams from the Americas and Asia Pacific regions and is used as a qualification event for the men's and women's world championships. There's also a B division for countries from further down the world rankings like Jamaica, India, and Kenya. This is year 3 for the event. Team Gushu claimed the A division men's title for Canada in the first 2 and is going for the three-peat this year. On the women's side, Korea's Team Gemmell is looking to defend its crown. The competition has already been going on for a few days, with the gold medal games scheduled for November 2nd. Head on over to worldcurling.org/curling channel to catch the action. We'll have a full recap for you on the next episode. When we come back, we'll talk to the CEO of USA Curling, Dean Gemmell. You don't want to miss it.
I love that curling is a team sport, that we're able to travel the world with friends and family and experience the journey with fans as well. The sport demands so much, whether it's fine motor skills or both physically and mentally taxing. And it's just a fun social sport that you're able to kind of make an extended family all over the world.
Everest is here to support you in the moments that matter. Learn how at everestfuneral.ca.
Mo.
The moustache is calling. Raise funds, save lives. Donate at Movember.com.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
As a competitive curler, Dean Gemmell threw lead stones for Team Quebec at the 1988 Brier and Team USA at the 2012 World Championships. He hosted the Curling Show podcast from 2005 to 2017, served as a broadcaster for USA Curling and the World Curling Federation, and co-authored a book on curling fitness with two-time Olympic gold medalist John Morris. Dean became USA Curling's Director of Development in 2021 and was named CEO of USA Curling in 2023. And now we welcome Dean to the show. Dean, thanks so much for joining tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So in your role as USA Curling CEO, kind of explain to us what that entails and what that's all about.
Yeah, so we're a member organization, 20,000 members. We're the national governing body for the sport of curling and the Paralympic sport of wheelchair curling in the United States. We're one of the few national governing bodies that handles both para and able-bodied sport. And then really, the curling community here in the United States is close to 200 curling clubs. We have about 90 dedicated ice clubs in the United States. So we actively serve our member clubs and the individual members of USA Curling. We run 18 different national championships, including men's and women's nationals and mixed doubles, but we run all kinds of other national championships as well for curlers of all levels of experience and age, everything from 5 and under nationals, which I assure you is not for toddlers. It's for curlers with 5 years of experience or less in the game, one of our most popular championships, and then seniors, mixed fours, etc. So, we try to serve curlers in this country at every level by providing services and events that are exciting for our community.
Obviously, lots to deal with from grassroots right up to the big stage. But what are some of the biggest things you're focused on this season, and maybe touch on some of the long-term goals that USA Curling has?
Yeah, so short-term goals are, as we get into this championship season, we want to deliver great events for our members at our national championships. We have and that's everything from our men's and women's national championships in Duluth this year. We have our mixed doubles Olympic team trials in February. We'll pick our team that will represent the United States in the Olympics. The winner of that event will do that. They'll be in the 26 games. So it's one of the earlier trials, and as early as we've ever had mixed doubles. But we like the idea of getting that team selected so the players on 4-person teams, if they're not a mixed doubles team, know that they can focus on 4-person curling. Short-term events this year, run a great national championship, run trials, and really start gearing up for the Olympics and making sure our teams are as prepared as well as possible as they can be for the Worlds. And then also just continue to do the day in, day out work with our member clubs and our individual members. We changed our membership model last year significantly. That was one of the biggest changes. We used to have member club requirements, and we had compliance numbers that people had to hit. Now as I like to say, we are not in the business of requiring membership anymore. We're out to earn it. And last year we had 20,000 members, really hit all our targets. So I think the new model was well received, and as long as we keep doing the work day in and day out to make the curling community feel like the national organization is behind them, we'll do just fine. And then long-term goal is just to continue. I think the biggest issue we have in the United States is access to facilities. We need to be part of driving facility growth, and we're trying to do that in a number of fronts. And I think what we've seen here in the last 10 to 15 years in the United States, if we do get facilities built in markets, especially in larger markets, they do very well. So we're excited about a couple developments. Dallas-Fort Worth has just signed a letter of intent to move into a building. I've been talking to people from that club here in Wausau. So there's lots of good things happening, but we need to continue to push on facilities.
Is there one thing that you can say that is sort of the objective to help grow the game in the States?
Well, I mean, I would say whatever we can do to fuel facility growth is going to be huge. So that's, I think, we have a lot of clubs now that are at or close to capacity. So we want to continue to attract more people to the game, get more people playing. Typically during the Olympics, we have, just thousands of people across the country learn to love the game during the Olympics. They come out and try it. And we need to make sure that they have facilities that are accessible and we'll get them curling regularly. So it's long term. Of course, facility growth doesn't happen overnight, as everybody knows. It's a challenge to get curling facilities built. But as we look towards the Olympic Games in 2034 in Salt Lake City, we see just an upward trend for the game, continue to grow facilities, continue to attract more young people to the game. We'd love to get it so we're a little higher on the radar for young athletes as a sport in the United States. And then we'd also love to get our nationals and some other events regularly on television. Our mixed doubles trials and our Olympic team trials will be on NBC and Peacock. But we'd love to have our other events in between the Olympic years broadcast as well.
Yeah, and even the 2026 Olympic trials aren't too far away. What does the process look like for qualification for Team USA this year, or I guess it would be next year?
Yeah, so our mixed doubles trials are actually in 25 for the 26 games. But so we have 10 teams in mixed doubles. We have 8 already qualified. We'll have one more. We have an event with 48 teams in it. It's the last chance mixed doubles qualifier. That'll be one more team, and then one more team will come. The 10th team will come from the World Curling Mixed Doubles Team Rankings in January. So that'll be a 10-team field, full round robin, best of 3 final. The winner of that will go on to represent the United States at the World Championship in 25, and then also be the Olympic team in 26. So what we do like about it is if you follow curling, World Championship results are how countries earn their berths in the Olympics. So that team will be playing for the berth in the Olympics, and we like that. And then on the team trials side, we have 4 teams per gender, and that's chosen through a variety of, or that's decided through a variety of ways, including national champions based on their finish at World Championships, and also World Curling team ranking system. So we'll have 4 in each. We're also running our wheelchair mixed doubles trials at the same time as our Olympic team trials next November. So I think we're the first national governing body to run a para trials at the same time as an able-bodied trials.
Interesting. Looking back to 2018, how much did that win by Team Schuster at the Olympics sort of put USA curling on the map, and how have you guys been able to carry that momentum forward?
Yeah, it was big. 7.5 million people watched a curling game in the middle of the night. So obviously it did a lot and really generated a lot of interest both in that team and in the sport. We got a lot of media coverage through the last cycle. I think it's led to a lot of things. Even, our mixed doubles national championship in 2023 was featured in a show on ESPN Plus called Tryouts. I don't think that happens without the gold medal. Again, I think it was definitely a catalyst. I think it was a little bit of, throwing a bit of kerosene on a fire that was sort of smoldering. So it definitely helped. But I do think gains in sport, especially a sport like ours, are incremental. You have to work for it every day. You have to try to be, get media coverage as much as you can, and also really engage the community that plays it so that they want to be supportive of it and that they want to help grow it. So I never see it as, a big, I think anything, whether it's a gold medal, whether it's a social media influencer who takes up our game, those are great and will definitely inject a lot of enthusiasm and growth. But I think it's the day in, day out work that really grows a sport.
You're not too far removed from your playing days. Does your playing experience help you in this role and kind of give you some perspective on maybe some of the important things that you do need to tackle now as a CEO?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I mean, it's, Nolan Thiessen, he's Curling Canada CEO. He's a former player, certainly played, had more success at the high levels than I ever did. But I think it helps just for one thing, I think I understand the perspective of players who are trying to play at the high levels and what that's like, and some understanding of the challenges they face. I don't have the solution for all the challenges, but I certainly understand them. And then I think, one thing I've tried to bring is I do have an experience playing in different kinds of events. And one of the things I try to do, though, is separate myself from the game a little bit when I look at it and try to look at it from the perspective of someone who is brand new to it, because I think we can get a bit myopic in curling sometimes. So I try to make sure that I'm thinking about it as a sports fan as well. But yeah, obviously being on the ice, playing a lot, and frankly, just loving the game. I mean, I love the game. I played my first league game of the season last night in New Jersey, and I was thrilled to win on last shot. So I still get excited about it. I also just really love to be around it. It's not a chore for me. I'm at a national championship right now. This championship is for our curlers who play on arena ice, not like what Canadians think of as arena ice. I'm talking about curlers that have to play on prep skating ice, so the conditions are pretty tough. And we run a national championship just for them, and I'm at that this week, and it's exciting to be around because they're about the most dedicated and enthusiastic curlers you'll ever meet.
So I mentioned earlier that you wrote a book with John Morris on sort of the physical side of curling and whatnot. You've been around the game a long time. How has the preparation in sort of the off the ice training evolved over the years?
Yeah, it's just so much more rigorous and serious. So when I wrote that book with John, that was when he was playing with Kevin Martin and that team with Ben Hebert and Mark Kennedy, and they were at the time 2007 through 2010. And their Olympic win, they were one of the first teams to really embrace fitness. And John had some experience as a personal trainer and a background in kinesiology. I got to know him through my old podcast. And I reached out to him and said, "Hey, would you ever be interested in doing a book like this?" And at the time it was, we certainly timed the market well, because there was really nothing else out there like it at the time. And it was news that you could really train for curling and what a difference it would make. When we look at the top players now, you just don't see players who aren't fit and athletic. And it's a grinding game at the high levels. I mean, I played in the 2012 Worlds, which quite frankly is still, worlds different than what the 25 Worlds will be like. But at those events, I mean, I was fit at the time. And at those events, I'd lose 3 to 4 pounds during the week. And I think one story we need to tell, even down here in the United States, is that this is a physical game at the high levels. That doesn't mean, I don't enjoy it like I did last night with a beer in the back of the glass and have a good time. But at the high levels, it's a physically demanding athletic sport. And I know we often say how, sometimes we will say how easy curling is. I don't think people play a sport because it's easy. I think we can say that our sport is approachable and you can get to be competent very quickly. But if you want to be really good at this sport, you're going to have to put in effort. You're going to have to be fit. You're going to have to be athletic. That doesn't mean the vast majority of us can't just enjoy it socially and recreationally. But at the high levels, it's really challenging. And John and I look back in that book and we'd probably do an entirely different book now if either of us had the time. But it was certainly, I think, helpful to move forward the idea that this is a physically challenging and athletic sport.
Being a Canadian who is now in the U.S., do you think we need to get a bit of a rivalry going, or some sort of series that can pit maybe some top curlers in Canada against the top U.S. and kind of get a little bit more hype from a marketing standpoint between the two countries?
Yeah, well, first, as the CEO of USA Curling, I'll say I'm an American who grew up in Canada. So as much as I love Canada, but actually, there's lots of good things happening with the game in the United States. We just had the Everest North American Curling Championship, sponsored by Everest, which was our club champions against Canada's club champions, featured on CBS Sports. So really, curlers who are good but play recreationally versus tour level. So that was Canada versus the U.S. I'd love to see that continue. I know Nick Sulsky at the Curling Group, new owners of the Grand Slam. They are very intent on growing the game in the United States, and we want to be active supporters and participants in their efforts. So yeah, I think this is still a huge growth potential down here. I think if we can, as I said earlier, if we can get the facilities built, get people a little more access to the game, the momentum is going to continue. We have good momentum, but we just have to keep working at it. I think some big events here in this country will do well. certainly have to market them maybe a little differently than you have to like a Briar or Scotties, but there is a market for it. Obviously, a TV deal down here would make a huge difference. We're excited to be on NBC with our trials, but we'd love to have more on television. But if you know anything about the sports media landscape right now, that takes dollars, and we need to find those dollars.
All right, Dean, well, that's all we have for you. I appreciate you joining us on our first show of the Hardline, and thanks as always.
Hey, appreciate you, and appreciate the opportunity.
That wraps up our debut episode of the Hardline Curling Show. Thanks to Nolan, Thiessen, and Dean Gemmell for sharing time with us tonight. And that's just the first of many great guests we will have on the show over the coming weeks. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single thing. Our next episode comes your way on November 8th. Until then, curling.